Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Give you all a few minutes to come in. But as you all are coming in, I would like to say my name is Taylor Leitner, and we're so delighted for you all to join us today for this session. We're bringing together all of the S-STEM project teams. So that's one thing about this program. It's our vision to increase the success of low-income, academically talented students with demonstrated need who are pursuing bachelor's degrees in STEM fields. So this program is all about building a stronger STEM workforce while fostering innovation across the entire nation. So the S-STEM Resource and Evaluation Center, or the REC as we know it, serves as a hub connecting over 600 funded STEM programs nationwide. And we created this infrastructure to build community, share knowledge about effective strategies, and support students in STEM. So thank you all for coming. Today's goals are to understand what effective approaches are for building and sustaining relationships across multiple university support units. We're going to explore some pathways and networks for identifying, recruiting, and supporting STEM scholars within institutional structures. And we're going to learn what those best practices for leveraging campus leadership to advance STEM initiatives and foster a culture of collaboration. So we'll be here for 60 minutes. And our agenda includes some networking with some STEM PIs. They are amazing. You will get to hear some more from them. We'll have an open discussion and then an interactive Q&A at the end. Before we get started, we would like to have some quick housekeeping notes before we dive in. So at the beginning of this session, you are free to use the chat box throughout our discussion, but you will not have unmuting privileges. You all will be muted during the panel discussion, and we'll have a dedicated Q&A near the end of the discussion where you'll be able to unmute and share your insights or any questions you might have. So make sure you keep those in mind or jot them down or even drop them in the chat if you want to, and we'll make sure to come back to those. Closed captioning is available. So if you would like that, just click the CC icon at the bottom of your screen to turn it on. But we also have them centered. If you have any questions during the session, I mean anything, please message Jamila Black, and she will be helping in the background. You'll see her name somewhere, and she'll show you. You'll see her. And this session is being recorded. Will be available on our website at stem.aaas.org/webinar. So that's where you'll find it, and we'll also generate a report following this meeting. So at the end of today's webinar, we'll share a link for a survey. Please, please, please take a few minutes to provide us feedback about your experience and any thoughts you have on this program. And before we start, we want to get you all warmed up for a fun icebreaker. And I have the pleasure of getting us started. The amazing question is, if you had a magic wand and could instantly remove one barrier beyond finances, because we know that's why we all are here, but it will keep students from low income backgrounds from thriving in STEM, what would that be and why? And I will drop this in the chat as well so that we can have a conversation via chat. And thank you for introducing yourself. We also would like to know the people in the room, so keep it up. And I'll repeat that. If you had a magic wand, it could instantly remove one barrier that keeps students from low income backgrounds from thriving in STEM. What would that be? What will we remove with our magic wand? Faculty that look like them, representation, yes. Support at home is a huge thing. Financial insecurity, low ambition, strengthen their math preparation is huge. Make sure I didn't miss one. Let me go back up. They can see themselves as engineers. Faculty bias against rural engineers, really big topic for sure. Accessible and affordable childcare costs on campus, very huge. Thank you, Tina. For student parents and those who care for children, national stats, 1 in 5 are student parents in 4-year institutions. So thank you for sharing that. Jess will remove the entire hidden curriculum, all of the things that students must know and be able to do to be successful, but they are rarely explicitly taught. Very important. The hidden curriculum is pervasive in our system, so thank you for mentioning that. When Mindy is like highlighting that as well, such as what are office hours. Welcome and Pret. Equal opportunities and inclusive teaching, student self-confidence. I'm seeing that multiple times. Thank you. Yes. Confidence that they belong and can succeed. Imposter syndrome. Lack of confidence. Again, I see that. Thank you. I will remove, this is Jacob, I will remove the barrier of having negative faculty interactions within the classroom that impact success and retention towards underrepresented students. Thank you for sharing. We got high school counselors, peers, parents telling students they are not cut out for college. That goes back into that confidence piece. Thank you for sharing that. Unexplicit expectations. That goes back to the hidden curriculum. Thank you, Victoria. Worrying about depth. Thank you, Amber. See, I see Leanne said train faculty to present culturally responsive teaching strategies and curriculums, access to institutional support, access to resources like the internet, applications for funding support. This is huge. I hope a lot of these things come up too, because this is important when we're trying to target students for this program as well. So transportation, parking, logistics on campuses that are not designed for commuters. Thank you, Scott, for mentioning that. I was infamous for getting parking tickets at the university. I almost had a plaque on the wall. Let's see. April had traditional college classroom structures like lecture only, experiencing intellectual snobbery. Like that, Tara. It's a new term we need to coin. Leanne, enrolling high school students in college classes, free college and promote success, and belief in their abilities and proven to improve post-secondary education. So yes, as we go, I know Mercy might be looking at me at the time. I want y'all to keep these things in mind as we think about what students we want in these programs and who needs it most and what other things they might be navigating beyond that financial stressors. And Mercy, I'll take it on to you. Take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor, for opening the webinar for us. And also thank you for our audience for engaging with us on the chat. I'm really, it's really good to see you sharing some of the barriers that students are encountering or that keep students away from STEM or from thriving, build the financial support. And this information also can help us in further exploring, what other ways can we better support our students so that we can keep them in STEM. Again, my name is Masimugo. I am with QEM Network, and QEM is one of the partners on the AAAS S-STEM Resource and Evaluation Center, or the REC, and I'll be moderating today's conversation. And so to start off, for today's discussion, we'll be hearing from representatives from two S-STEM projects about their processes of identifying scholars and how they are leveraging various resources within their campuses, including senior leadership and other campus units to support their recruitment efforts. We all know that as we are coming from S-STEM projects, we all know that getting an award is only one step in that process, and that more work happens then when we have to execute the awards condition. And that includes being able to plan, identify students, distribute the scholarship, and working with the different structures and system on campus to make this happen. So we thought that it would be important for us to further explore this topic and bring people who are really doing or taking on some interactive approaches to be able to support their students. So I'll be introducing our panelists and then we'll hear from them. And after the panelist conversation, we'll have time for Q&A where you get to ask any questions that you have, as well as like some opportunity for all of us to share some of the approaches that we're using to support students. And this conversation is good because with the S-STEM project, that's coming from different contexts and different spaces and supporting students with different needs. It's good to learn from each other in order to see how different projects are leveraging the different resources and how they are supporting their students. So to start off, we have Jessica R. Santagero. Jessica is a professor of biology at Hofstra University. She is a principal investigator of an NSF S-STEM funded integrative achievement and mentoring program, IAM. The program is designed to support students who excelled in high school but face challenges in their first years of college. And it provides scholarships, mentoring, and structured support help the scholars regain momentum, persist in STEM degrees, and also enter the STEM workforce. Dr. Santangelo's leadership of the IM program underscores her commitment to student success, inclusive pedagogy, and building sustainable networks that promote access to STEM professionals. Next, on our panel, we have Dr. Renata A. Revelo, who is a clinical professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Dr. Rivero is a co-PI on an S-STEM project that provides scholarship to engineering and computer science students all the way from their first year in college, as well as supporting transfer students. The project leverages various programs in the College of Engineering at the UIC campus and incorporates cohort building activities to nurture scholars throughout their undergraduate education. It's multi-tiered in terms of some of the services they provide. Their mentoring program involves faculty mentors, peer mentors, as well as industry partners. Her research focuses on engineering identity development, critical consciousness in design, student success, and the culture of engineering. And she has published in various journals, including the Journal of Engineering Education and the Journal of Hispanic Higher Education. She's also a recipient of multiple teaching and advising awards at UIC. Last but not least, we have Elsa M. Soto, who is the Director of Equity and Inclusion in Engineering at the University of Illinois, Chicago, at the College of Engineering. She has served in this community for more than 17 years. She's a proud alumni of the institution where she earned her bachelor's and master's degree and is currently pursuing a Doctor of Education degree in education policy, organization, and leadership at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. She also shared how her office has worked strategically with the S-STEM program at UIC to support their student recruitment effort. So to start off, I welcome Jessica and Renata to briefly describe your S-STEM project and the specific student population that your project aims to identify and support. And also more specifically, you can speak to how your target population is unique, as well as some of the challenges that you're encountering as you try to reach the student for your project. Jessica?
All right, thanks. Glad to be here today. So Mercy did a great job of giving you an overview of the program. It's the Integrated Achievement and Mentoring Program. We call it the IM program. Before we applied for our first S-STEM, we did a really deep dive on some historical data at our institution to try to figure out which population of students we were most at risk of losing. And what we identified was that Hofstra was losing our students who were very academically successful before they entered Hofstra, came to Hofstra, had a STEM major, and underperformed in their first semester. So those students who earned between a 2.0 and a 2.74 in their first semester were unlikely on their own to be able to get their GPAs back up to a 3.0, which at the time was the threshold for those students to be able to maintain their Hofstra awarded merit-based aid. So for our Pell students in particular, this was really important because Hofstra is not inexpensive. And if they lost their Hofstra awarded merit-based scholarships, they couldn't afford to stay with us. So that was our target population. Those students who had a 2.75 or above, they seemed to be able to get back up to that magic 3.0 number, but not this 2.0 to 2.74. This is a challenging population to do outreach to because many of them have never underperformed in their lives ever. They were super successful when they came to us. So then when they have this disappointing first semester and we're trying to reach out to them at the same time that they're getting letters from the institution that they underperformed and are at risk of losing their scholarships, that's really challenging. We also have a narrow window of time to contact them because we don't get their grades until the first week of January, but we try to do the application, interview, and selection process before the first day of classes, which for us is sort of that tail end of January, first week of February. So those two pieces are the most challenging for us. And well, and we'll have questions later about how we address those. But for us, those were the two main things with respect to reaching out to those students and bringing them into our program.
Thank you, Jess. Aneta, please describe your project.
Sure, yes. Thank you again for having us. So at the project that we had, I'll kind of speak to, actually, it's two projects that I've been a part of. One started in 2018, went through 2024 last year because we had an extension. And then the next project started last year. Both are S-STEM grants and both are for College of Engineering students. I think I would say that that's the first unique aspect, is that they're all just addressing engineering students' success here. I think what also makes the population for our group unique inherently is because the population of students at UIC is unique inherently. So we have a significant percentage of students at our institution that are low-income students. And so in terms of the pool is quite large, right? So then we start getting into high achieving students. And I think one of the challenges that we saw, at least the very first year of the first grant that I've been involved in, is the timeline of admission to be able to almost recruit students that are very high achieving and could afford to come to UIC with the scholarship, but because we couldn't get that opportunity out to them on time because of the timeline, they went somewhere else, right? So it's really an opportunity, I guess, as a recruitment tool for UIC, because I'm sure they had very fruitful careers elsewhere, and that's great. But in terms of the scholarship, we know that, you know, if they're able to take that opportunity at UIC, it would have matched up with a lot of other efforts that UIC has in order to make education really affordable for students. So I think that's one of the challenges, and the way that we've kind of overcome that challenge just very quickly has been to just be more proactive with our recruitment of students. And I know we'll talk more about that later, so we can save that for later. Another unique aspect of our institution, and I guess what makes the pool of eligible students at UIC unique, is that we have a high percentage of students who are first generation students, and then also students, especially in the College of Engineering, who are transferring from community colleges. So we have in both grant cohorts that are specifically for transfer students. The other cohorts are for students coming from more traditional students coming straight from high school, pursuing an engineering degree.
Thank you both for sharing. I hear timeliness being one key point that you both raised, so hopefully you'll come to that further down in the conversation. But I do know that that's something we continue to hear because of how the semester starts, and then especially if you're targeting first-year students, you have to know about their GPA before you can even start giving them scholarships. So that's always an issue, but I am hoping that we can revisit that further on in the conversation. Elsa, you are in a unique place because you are in another office, but you've been able to work closely with the S-STEM project at UIC. Can you speak to how your unit has been able to support the NETA's program in recruiting the students for the S-STEM?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. So yes, I think I'd like to start by highlighting that one of the greatest strengths of our UIC team is that we're deeply connected, and there's a mutual understanding of our mission in supporting students who are part of programs like S-STEM. And so working with Dr. Rebelo and others has been an incredibly gratifying experience, because although our involvement in the recruitment process is minimal, we are definitely involved in supporting the students once they come to UIC. And so at the institution level, which is also reflected at the college and department level, UIC is intentional about steering away from a one-size-fits-all mentality and approach in supporting students. And we recognize that our students and our scholars have diverse lived experiences and needs, and that we need to take a holistic approach to support them, whether it's advising, connecting them with resources like financial resources, or building community through mentoring or programs, or even student organizations like SHIP, NSB SWE, and so many others. And I think this is really important that, again, there's this mutual understanding and acknowledgement that we need to keep these factors in mind to really support them and enhance their experiences here at our institution. And I think also what makes our approach very unique, and I would hope it's the same at other institutions, is that our senior leadership, which includes our deans, really champion for these types of programs and these types of approaches. So that makes our job a little bit easier for sure. And of course, there are some challenges that exist, but we are incredibly grateful to have leadership that understands how critical these programs are. And so basically through my office and some of our other UIC partners, we emphasize to our scholars that opportunities like S-STEM are more than just financial support, right? That these programs are designed as a comprehensive support system that also builds community and uplifts them academically, professionally, and personally. And so I think this framing helps students see themselves as part of a larger network of peers, mentors, and advocates. And again, we do this through various programs where we may hear from alumni who are willing to share their stories and their experiences as college students, and maybe transitioning from that to industry or graduate school, to hosting various corporate partners who not only promote internship and employment opportunities, but also talk about how they foster community and support engineers at their respective places or workplaces. And I think this is really important. And many students, including our S-STEM scholars, want to hear those stories and they want to connect with companies in these ways. And so again, we recognize that there are some challenges, but what really makes our collaboration effective is that we acknowledge these challenges, and we do so openly, and we work together across these various units to ensure that students don't face those challenges alone. And I think that is incredibly important, especially now. But those are some ways, and of course, I would love to provide more details and answer any questions later about the specifics of some of these efforts.
Thank you, Elsa, for sharing. The importance of relationship building and leaning onto those networks cannot be emphasized enough. And Jess, I recall when we first started talking about this session, you are the connector at your institution with how you connect with the different units and make sure that they're able to provide what you need to run the program. Can you speak more about how you are leveraging those units and other senior leadership, whether it's personnel or resources within your campus to support your scholars identification process?
Sure. And actually, it echoes a lot of what Elsa was saying about being deeply connected and aligned in mission. That's one of the things that I and the team as a whole have worked to make sure that our senior administrators can be champions for us by keeping them informed. So I'm fortunate at Hofstra, and I hope this is true at other institutions as well. Like, we're large enough to do cool things, but small enough that I can reach out to people. And so we have developed really strong relationships with the people and the various units with which we interact. So for example, from the beginning, we were really clear with our financial aid office about Hofstra has never had an S-STEM before. What growing pains should we be aware of with respect to awarding these scholarships to the students? What types of workflows could we set up such that we're not overburdening the financial aid staff with getting all of these scholarships processed? So we were able to work out with them through some very clear and direct communication, a process that would work. And of course, we've tweaked that over time. With respect to some other units on campus, like we've got the Center for Academic Excellence, which is critically important for our students who are having some academic transition issues. So working with them over the years and finding the best ways to integrate the Center for Academic Excellence for our students. And so again, it comes back to communication and relationships. There have been some years where they've had plenty of staff over there. And so we could have our scholars go to the Center for Academic Excellence and have one-on-one appointments with the academic success advisors. There have been other times where they've been understaffed. And so we were able to work with them to have a single staff person come to us and our scholars and work in that way. And so a lot of it has really been about maintaining open lines of communication. And if anything, communicating more frequently than perhaps is strictly necessary, so that everyone's on the same page. And again, then everyone can be a champion for the project and a champion for the work.
Thank you for sharing that. Renata, I'll come back to you on this as well, because you also shared the role that the Dean of Undergraduate Affairs played in both of your programs. Can you speak a little bit to how your program has been able to benefit from her leadership and also connecting you to the different campus units?
Yeah, so that is true for the current grant and the previous grant. And in the previous grant, we had a different dean for undergraduate affairs. But in both cases, both them in that position and then also the dean of the College of Engineering have been part of the grant. And I think going all the way back to when we started getting the team together to have this proposal going, it was pre-COVID, so it was all in-person meetings, very easy to just echoing what Elsa was saying, is kind of creating community around this effort that was going to be college-wide. And so very purposefully choosing folks from each department so that we have representation in each of the departments. So, and I think that really brought lots of cohesiveness to the project, as well as, of course, having the deans involved because they have very easy access to the type of data that we need in order to, say, create the list of eligible or have the list of eligible scholars. So I think in particular for the first grant, it was primarily driven by the PI who was in mechanical and industrial engineering, but also the dean, as you mentioned at the time, had received a previous S-STEM scholarship himself. So that made it, I guess, in a way easier to navigate, but also easier to put forth a very comprehensive plan of what we wanted, because this was around the time when the S-STEM had changed its solicitation so that now it wasn't only scholarship, but we also needed to create a support system for students. And so those first meetings were actually really fun, and because we were really brainstorming and trying to put all of our ideas together and make them happen. And again, leveraging the expertise of everyone on the at the table who was from the various departments. Really helpful. And so a lot of the programs that we created for the S-STEM larger program, we're benefiting from lots of the units across campus, inside of College of Engineering and then also outside of the College of Engineering. And to me, that became easier to do because we had the deans in our grant team.
Thank you. It seems like having that buy-in from the leadership is really helpful in one, advocating for the program and also supporting the projects in whatever ways that they need. And I know you've already shared a little bit about this, but are there other specific examples of like effective relationship and collaboration or practices that have made a difference in your project that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question, and I really went back to like the first meetings that we had in making this not just about, and I don't want to sound too cynical, right? But it's not just about writing a grant together to, to get the money that's critical for student success, but it was really about trying to do something where we can institutionalize the practices that we see working, because a lot of the students at our institution meet the criteria for the grant, right? So if we can show that it's working for this subgroup of individuals, then there was buy-in from the leadership, as you mentioned, to say, well, if this works for the grant, why not have it for the whole college? So coming in with that mentality of it's really something to perhaps add a new program, perhaps change the way that we do things in the future, I think to me was really rejuvenating. Like, it was something that was really exciting to be a part of. And a lot of that was those beginning brainstorming sessions, really getting to know each other, like having meals together, that kind of thing. And then that has continued on, as you have seen, because now we have another grant that we are continuing the work and then adding more to it.
Yes, do you have specific examples, or should I move to the next question?
I mean, I can give you one that's critically important for us, which is having the buy-in of particularly our provost has been really helpful, because the provost office oversees our institutional research office, and that office is perennially understaffed. And yet our program requires data immediately at the end of the semester. And the data that we require is actually in 3 different buckets that are the responsibility of 3 different units on campus: institutional research, financial aid, and the registrar. And so we worked really hard. It was an easy sell to have our provost and our president be on board with the scope of our project and what we were trying to do. And then in developing the relationships with our main contact at institutional research, that has really helped us. And even our staff in institutional research are deeply committed to student retention. So our retention numbers have been going up year over year at Hofstra, and we're really proud of that. We have a lot of initiatives that are playing into that, but because everyone buys into it, and because we have the support of that senior leadership, we're able to have people who are in positions to smooth the pathway for us, to help us be successful. And that's been really important.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's good to hear that from both institutions, you have that support in place, and that it has been helpful for you all to be able to run your projects and also have students get supported. The next question is on what specific strategies have you found most effective for reaching and identifying students for your projects? And that can be from when you start the outreach process, all the way to like now, once you get them into the program, the touch points that you have and the continuous communication that happen. What are some of the strategies that you found to be effective?
I mean, I'm happy to keep talking. I'll share with you briefly. Over a number of years, we figured out things that work better. I thought it would be sufficient to reach out to students and say, you could get up to $40,000 in scholarships, and they would all apply. No, that is not what happened. And so what we found over time was there were a couple of things that worked well for us for recruiting our scholars. One was to host a virtual open house, usually a couple of them, in that January window where they can apply. And importantly, though someone from the faculty is there, we pretty much immediately put all of the students into a breakout room with some of our current scholars. It is so much less intimidating for the students to talk to each other than it is for them to talk to faculty. We also have had our current scholars write up little blurbs about their experiences, and then we will email, or we have a texting system, text them out to the students who are eligible to apply. And that has been really helpful. Again, particularly for students who were super high achievers in high school, who initially underperform academically. Many of them feel very intimidated then to be trying to communicate with faculty because they're feeling all kinds of emotions. about the fact that they didn't perform the way they thought they would. But having them communicate with other students who were in the exact same boat as them has been a lot more successful for us. And then in terms of keeping them engaged, I think, well, if any STEM program has figured out how to get every student to show up to all the things, I would like to know, because I think we all struggle with that. One of the things that we do is we have food at everything. I can get meal cards from the institution so that when our students, they're all in these mentoring squads. There is a faculty mentor, and one of our more senior scholars are a mentor within each group, and they both have meal cards. So whenever the group gets together, they can get a snack, they can get coffee, they can get lunch. So food has been a really excellent motivator for us.
Food is good. Elsa, did you want to say something?
Sure. I just want to echo what Jess said. For our events, yes, we always have food, and we sometimes add some swag and maybe some raffles for college merch, and I think that definitely helps a little bit. But I think language also matters in the way that we invite the scholars to participate in the program, but also in our events, and so we're very intentional in how we promote those opportunities. And really emphasize the benefits that go beyond just attending this required event, right? And so I think that that helps a lot. And I think at least at UIC, our students and our scholars are required to meet with advisors every so often, and all of that is documented. And so we ensure that they are aware of that, and how everyone who is part of their network knows if they've attended those mandatory advising sessions, and if not, that there is support, and we are willing to work with you in case there are some conflicts or there may be some other barriers. So being accessible also really matters. That we want to be, again, as supportive as possible in every way. And so if that means sometimes, maybe at least in my case, staying a little after my work hours, then I will certainly do that to ensure that the student is addressing their needs and their questions. And I know Dr. Ravello could probably address the STEM required events and meetings for the scholars. But at least for us in the opportunities that we offer, again, I think it really matters how we promote it, what we're offering to the scholars and the students beyond this just being a requirement, and emphasizing that accessibility is something that we prioritize.
Yeah, so we don't have required events anymore, right? So, but we try not to remind the students of that all the time, right? But I think what happens after the first meeting or so is that they've built such a community as a group that the next event, and yes, we offer food at almost all of the events. And that's where it has come in very helpful to have like the dean be part of the dean's office be part of our grant, is that they want to see each other. So yes, we have the food, and then it's a workshop about studying for finals, right? And they go there just to see each other, really. And we see that over and over again as like students stay a little bit after the event just to continue to catch up. And so that is a nice kind of snowball effect. Going back a little bit to the question, Mercy, that you asked about how are we doing some of this, reaching out to students to be able to get them to apply, make that a little bit easier for them to not miss the email. Unfortunately, that is also what we found within the cohorts coming straight from high school, is that they missed the email. In this last cohort, or not this last, the cohort from last year in the newest grant, we had one of the students say, there was a power outage, and I got on my phone because of the power outage. I saw the email and I just decided to apply, but I didn't even realize that it would cover almost, after having that scholarship and other scholarships, it would almost be a full ride. So it was kind of like she just ended up applying for it because she had nothing else to do that night. So it's like, we don't want these situations. So with the cohort that we had this year, what we did this year, the cohort was of transfer students. So what we did ahead of time, leveraging our professional contacts within the Chicagoland area of community colleges that are we're likely to have students coming from there, is reaching out to the engineering either instructors or deans at those colleges ahead of time to let them know, hey, like your students, some of them are going to be eligible. They're going to be getting an email. Please make sure that they know that, right? So we send them an email about that and receive confirmation, and also flyers for them to kind of share with their students that they should be looking out for. And that really helped, I think, with the cohort last year where we had a large number of applicants.
Thank you for sharing that. And I can also see there's good conversation going on in the chat. Please keep commenting. Thanks, Jess, for responding to the question. I've also had instances where the STEM PI team said notification or email communication or mail to the parents as a way of making the parents aware of those opportunities. And for some program, that has been a way of them getting students to apply, because now the parents is aware of the opportunity and they kind of push the student. But I'm also looking forward to the Q&A and the comment section so that others can also share about their experience. So we're going into the final question, and you may have addressed some of it at the beginning when you talked about some of the challenges, but we wanted to have more in-depth conversation about this, because we all know that when you write the proposal, the expectation you have once you get the award and you get into the field of recruitment, sometimes things do not always pan out the way you expected. So sometimes you have to take detours and change something. So we wanted to know, what challenges have you encountered in your student identification process, and how have you adapted your approaches or partnerships to overcome those challenges?
So one of the things that we ran into early on, we had this great idea that students would submit like a little application form with a couple very short, like bullet point essay kind of things. And they would submit like a CV or a resume and, ask a professor for a letter of recommendation. And holy smokes, that was way too much, especially in the narrow window that we were aiming for. If these were high performing seniors, they might be able to do all of those things, but some of them didn't know how to put a resume together. And so that was a barrier to them. Some of them were intimidated about asking faculty for letters. So we really quickly pivoted, and now there's no resume. We just have little boxes with the types of information that we're interested in that they fill in online. They don't have to ask a faculty for recommendation. What we do is we ask them, which of your faculty would you not want us to contact? Because sometimes students have a relationship with someone and they're like, I don't ever want to see that person or think about that person again. And that's really helped because we know what the student schedules were. We know what faculty they had. So if they say, don't contact Professor A, that means that we can contact professors B, C, and D and ask them for a little blurb about the student. So for us, it was really like we had this pie in the sky idea of what we would do. We also started out doing in-person interviews because this was in the before times. And we would have them cut, and it was logistically, it was a nightmare. And then when we all discovered Zoom and the world moved online, that really helped us as well. And I think made it a little bit less intimidating for the students to be in an online setting as opposed to in person. And it also removed some inequities that existed in terms of trying to get to campus for an in-person interview, which was a struggle for some of our students who are commuters but share a car with family members. So it was really sort of a learning process. And I will offer that we had intentionally, though, from the beginning, built in what we call a responsive program structure. So every semester, it used to be every semester, now it's every year because we just have too many scholars now. It's a good problem to have. We were doing focus groups with them and with someone who was sort of outside of the main leadership team so that the students would be comfortable being frank and honest about what was working and what was not. And so we would make changes virtually every semester and then very explicitly tell the students, we are making this change because you suggested it, so that they understood that they were partners in developing the program.
Thank you. I love how you also centered student voices in changing your approaches and updating your materials. So that's awesome. Renata, do you want to add to that?
I think we share a lot of the same challenges. So I was definitely going to mention that, you know, we had in-person interviews, and it was like the idea was 2 faculty or more were interviewing 1 student, and it was really great meeting people in person, but it was so much better later on when we could do Zoom interviews. So definitely, I think that was a positive change in what we've done in terms of student selection. I think one of the other things that we've pivoted is also even like the interview questions that we had, making them just a little bit more so that it creates a more relaxed environment, so that the student can really talk about what excites them about pursuing, in our case, pursuing engineering. Because one of the factors that we're trying to determine in the interview is we understand that these are young people, right? For these interviews where students are coming from high school, and they may have chosen something that they may change their mind about, and that's totally fine. But we really want to invest into the scholarship somebody who's like, I know I want to do engineering. This is what I'm like super passionate about. And so that's what we're trying to determine in the interview. So it's kind of also pivoting some of the kind of environment that we create in this interview in order to get that. And I think the Zoom aspect of that helped, and then changing a little bit on the interview questions also helped. The other challenges, I think, are more like logistical and administrative. And like I mentioned earlier, like the timeline of things, those are harder because there's, as Jess was mentioning earlier, multiple units that are involved on our side as well, right? So it's being able to, and the only thing that helped there, I think, or not the only thing, but one of the main ways of leveraging this is having the dean as part of our team, as I've mentioned before, right? Because the financial aid office at our institution, especially in the last, like, I don't know, Elsa, like 2-3 years, has been so overwhelmed with just everything going on, right, at a national level. So it's one of those where it's like we have to be really mindful of the timeline, because if we're not, then we're not getting these opportunities out to the people that may need it the most. And then, and like I said before, they might end up going somewhere else where they have very fruitful careers, but maybe they would have spent less money coming to UIC and still having a very fruitful career.
Thank you all for this insightful information and input. At this time, we want to open the floor for questions from the audience. So I think everyone now can be able to come off mute. Please raise your hand or use the raise hand button. If you have any questions, you can also ask more questions on the chat. And I see there's a question on this chat about the number of the students in your programs. So maybe you can be answering that as we wait for more questions.
I am looking up the exact number right now.
I can quickly answer for our last grant. So the grant that started last year, we accepted 18 scholars. Last year, 2 of them left for personal reasons, so they actually left the university. And then we accepted 19 scholars this year.
And I think we're at like, well, hang on. I'm going to look up the number, the official number. I'll let you know. Hang on one second.
And if anyone has another question, feel free to come off mute and ask the question as well. Or you have some other approaches that you've found helpful in identifying students. Again, you can also come off the mute and share with the audience, because you all want to learn from each other about what's working in our projects.
Mercy, I wanted to add just really quickly that at UIC last year, I believe when all these issues were happening with FAFSA, I did work very closely with our S-STEM team, because we were also identifying scholars for a different scholarship program. So we collectively came together to sort of address all these issues that were happening at the national level, to Renata's point, to identify identify students who qualified for both programs. And I think us coming together really remedied some of the issues that were happening, and just the timeline of identifying scholars and again having information about their financial aid status was very complicated. So we really needed to work together, and fortunately in our case it did. But that was a situation where I can think of, we really had to come together to address some issues that were out of our control, but we knew we had a timeline to abide by.
Thank you for sharing that, Elsa, and how that collaborative effort helped recruit students for the both projects. Jess, thanks for sharing. You have 36 active scholars, and your last cohort was 14 students. There are a few questions on the chat, so I'll just read them, and then for the panelists, feel free to respond to them. So there's a question on what system or processes do you use to communicate with the campus partners, like the financial aid and other campus units on a regular basis?
I do a lot of email and phone calls.
Email and calls.
Yep. And then we have like a
So-
Google Drive and Google Sheet set up to organize all the paperwork for the scholars and their scholarships. But it's a lot of interaction. And in the beginning, it was a lot of phone calls and in-person meetings. But now that we have workflows and relationships built, it's a lot of email.
Great, thanks for sharing. And there's also a question on the type of social programs that you provide for the scholars. Can you share a little bit about that? Donetta, do you want to start?
Yeah, let me, so what we have in terms of social programs, they start right after summer with the Summer Bridge program. We started with a 2-week program. It was amazing. And then of course it was like, okay, now we have to go down to 1 week to make it possible. And then also maybe to scale to other non-STEM students. So that's the first one where they stay on campus. They create community. They're really with each other all the time. And so they really form a really strong cohort after that. The other program, but that's kind of like an academic, social, and professional program, is they take the Intro to Engineering class together. So in this iteration of it, they're with each other for about 8 weeks, learning about what the College of Engineering is about, the various different majors, even though they've all chosen majors, just in case they decide to switch. And then they go on to meet other people from their own departments if there aren't any in that. Some of the other programs that we have in terms of social programs, one of the current senior personnel in the programs who works for the undergraduate office, she is running workshops for students. So like academic and professional development kind of workshops. But like I mentioned before, they end up turning into kind of social gatherings as well. And then aside from that, not necessarily a social program, but again, one that requires people, right, is where we have faculty mentors, industry mentors, and they are able to create relationships with those folks that hopefully help guide them along the way, and then figure out, what do I do after graduation?
Yes, do you want to share a little bit about the social programs for your project? And I see you answering the questions on the chat, so thank you as well.
So we do 2 main sets of social things. One is we have what we call all program lunches, where everyone, the leadership team, the faculty mentors, and all the scholars and alumni, if they're around, are invited. We do that in the first week of the fall semester, the first week of the spring semester, and the last week of the spring semester. So 3 touch points each time. And those involve food, but also usually some sort of team building activity. We have found that those are most successful when the more senior scholars plan them. It offers an opportunity for our more senior scholars to take a leadership role within the program, and also makes the more junior scholars more likely to play because their peers are the ones who put it together. And then lately, we've also been incorporating what we call success workshops. So where the Center for Academic Excellence, for example, will come. We'll probably have the Career Center come in January because we have a big STEM professional, as well as the university's large career fair in the spring semester. So we try to incorporate some of those. And then really the heart of what we do is the mentoring squad. So that's a faculty mentor, a scholar mentor, and then other scholars in the squad. They're typically, the squad composition is typically dictated by the students' schedules and when they happen to all be available. I was saying in the chat, the squads meet every other week. The first week, the faculty mentor is there. 2 weeks later, the faculty mentor is not there. Again, part of the responsive program structure. Sometimes the students just wanted to talk to other students and not have an adult around listening. So we had adopted that for them. And so the mentoring squads are really the heart of where we see in all of our knowledge generation stuff that we're doing, where we see students really feel included. So there's inclusivity going on. They feel like they're part of a community that they can identify. And then they also feel like they belong. And so the squads and that sort of regular interaction in a less formal, more informal setting has really been critical.
Thank you for sharing that. Donetta, when I was reviewing your proposal, there was a mention of industry partner. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to lean or leverage on the industry partner as part of your mentoring model?
Yeah, so we had a whole branch of the industry partner connection in the first grant, which some of those things we're continuing on with this one. One of those was there were other PIs that were in charge of selecting industry folks who were, I think at the time, we were leveraging the industry advisory board that the college has in order to select mentors that would be a good match with the students in terms of interest. So if the student said, I'm interested in going into robotics, then maybe we had a mentor who was doing robotics in industry, and then they could be paired together. To have regular meetings for about a year or so, and then then it's essentially they graduate, and it's up to them if they want to continue that relationship. I think through that, it wasn't just the industry mentors. We also had some meetings where we had students meet with alumni who were in industry. And that was also leveraged through the industry advisory board, where they were able to see that. And we've had that in every cohort of the grant. And in our most recent iteration or not this year, but last year, even though a lot of them were still a lot of the alumni industry folks were attending via Zoom, it was still super impactful with the students. Like so as part of the knowledge generation aspect of our grant, we do an interview with the students, and that was something that came up over and over again in the interviews in terms of what stayed with them, right, for that first year. Those industry connections, and so the idea is that hopefully it gives them an introduction of what my future might look like, but also being able to have those conversations early on so that it becomes easier and easier if industry is the way that they want to go after graduation.
Yeah, I think that exposure is very important. All right, we are coming on to the top of the hour, but I just want to give our panelists like half a minute for any closing comments that you may want to make before we close out the webinar.
The one thing I would offer is that if you're considering doing an S-STEM, it cannot be a one-person crusade. The most valuable thing that we did as a team was to make sure we identified really strong people, right, in across a diversity of positions. We have biologists, chemists, people in the School of Ed, people in the dean's office, engineers, and then we have an advisory board. Having a team that can use their strengths to complement your strengths so that you are not doing it alone is, in my mind, one of the most important things that you could do.
I completely agree with that, and I second that. And I'll add to that, because that was my takeaway was going to be just know who your team are. But I think in addition to that, it's also about not just what each person is able to do in their own expertise, but how flexible they are. Because I think after you've written the proposal, there are going to be things that as you're executing the proposal that come up, and it cannot all be up to the PI, as Jess mentioned, right? So then it comes down to who's willing to raise their hand and say, no, I got this one, right? And that is something that you have to trust the individuals that you're working with, so that if you cannot do it, you're trusting that somebody else is going to be able to do it just as well as you would. And that I think has been one of the major aspects. In fact, I think during our all hands meeting, we have often conversations where it's like, okay, any new business. And so we have a running list of things that we would love to do. And then it's saying, all right, who wants to work on this, right? And I think all of that comes down to communication, but also being able to trust the people that you're working with.
Very important. Thanks for sharing. Elsa?
Yeah, I'll
Please
keep
share.
it brief. I know we're at time, but I just echo everything that was just said. And my only other piece of advice, if you will, is to be adaptable. And again, to shift away from this one size fits all mentality. Our students need our support, and we need to understand that they all have unique needs and challenges, and they need us to address that. So that's it.
Awesome. I want to sincerely thank you, our panelists, for your very insightful input, as well as to our participants for taking the time to spend this hour with us. We only have we're on the top of the hour actually. So what I would ask for the participants is that if you can take 1 minute to complete a very short survey about this event, that would be very helpful. Thank you, Tara, for sharing the link to the survey. And again, thanks to our panelists and to all our participants, to the REC team for taking the time to be with us today. There was a question whether the panelists would entertain email. I would say, okay, yes. Okay, thanks for sharing your email, Jessie. And if Renata, you want to share your email with the participants, please feel free to do that. But again, thanks everyone for your time, for your commitment, for your very interactive questions, and for joining us this afternoon. You all have a wonderful afternoon. Be on the lookout for future sessions that we'll have with the scholars later in the semester and with the faculty member in the spring. Thanks, everyone.